Hi, I'm Matthew Hersberg, and this is the Myopia Mindset. Did you know that the Myopia Mindset has a significant group of paid supporters behind it? That's right. These are people who give us their actual real life money because they believe in what I'm doing. They want to help me get the word out there about how cool myopia management is so that more ECPs start doing it. And my way of saying thanks is to give them an extended version of every episode and also a bonus episode each and every month, which you're about to see a preview of that in just a second. This episode, I have Dr. Carrie Hersberg on with me because I found this conversation on the Google group of the American Academy of Orthokeratology and Myopia Control. The AAOMC has great discussions happening all the time on its Google group. And if you're not a member already, you should certainly consider signing up because you should be a part of this conversation. And this episode really got me thinking about a future in which, patients were shopping around for myopia management. And what would that look like in the future? Or is it even happening right now? So you're going to get 20 minutes or so of this episode, but Carrie and I talk about this for almost a full hour, if not more. And you can get access to that by going to myopiamindset.substack.com and clicking on the subscribe button, becoming a paid subscriber for $12 a month, which is basically the price of a cup of coffee each and every week. And I like to say, hey, if you would buy me a cup of coffee each and every week to do everything that we're doing on the Myopia Mindset, to nerd out about this stuff, to have on amazing guests, if you would support my efforts to try to get the word out there and let every ECP know how great myopia management is, then please consider doing so. You can go to myopiamindset.substack.com and click on that subscriber button. Like I said, thank you so much for considering. Let's get to this preview. All right, welcome to the Myopia Mindset, and this is a podcast where myopia matters and the mindset of myopia matters and how to treat myopia matters. And I have on with me Dr. Carrie Hersberg, who is co-founder of the AAOMC, past president of the AAOMC, past president of the International Academy of Orthokeratology and Myopia Control. He's currently a consultant for Johnson & Johnson, is one of the all-time Ortho-K legends and gurus. Carrie, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Matt. It's a pleasure to be back. Here we are.
We're back. Yeah. It's always weird to introduce your own father because you're like, well, he's done all of these amazing things in Ortho-K and myopia management, but he's also done a lot of amazing things for me in my life. So I don't know where to start and stop with the introduction, but welcome back to the program nonetheless.
Thank you. Yeah, it's back in the seat again here, back in the saddle. So we're
right.
Good. We're good. Yeah, it's been an interesting time. These last couple of years, we'll have a session about that.
Yeah, we certainly will. Yeah, and if you're listening to this episode of the Myopia Mindset, thank you so much, because this is a supporters episode. That's what we've designed them for. I have the benefit of having an absolute legend, an Ortho-K guru, basically in my pocket. I can call him, multiple times a week, and I do. And we talk about all sorts of things about Ortho-K and myopia management. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to turn on the mics, record our conversations, let people hear the kind of things that we talk about. And if you would like to participate in the conversation, please feel free to reach out at please feel free to reach out at myopiamindset@gmail.com. And we'll pose your questions to Carrie and get responses for you. And that's what this is all about. So if there's any way we can answer your questions about Ortho-K or myopia management, send them our way. All right, Carrie, I wanted to do something a little different for this episode. I thought, why not give a little bit of like a peek behind the curtain and how we come up with episode topics and things that we're talking about, see if that has any value to the listener, because oftentimes when I think about a subject for our podcast, I think I start looking at what's online, paying attention to what people are saying. And I'm like, I should ask my dad about this, see what he thinks, because I think that this might be a good topic for an episode, but I wanted to get your input on it. And I feel like we could just generally discuss it. And
Sure.
if we think it's good enough for an actual topic, I'll put it on the main feed.
Hmm.
I feel otherwise it's kind of just like a planning episode. All right.
Right.
Okay. So, I think I sent you a link,
Yeah.
an email about this. You know what we're going to talk about. So
Sure.
I don't want to mention anybody specifically by name because this topic comes from the AAOMC Google group, and that's a private group for AAOMC members, which is a great resource if you have questions about Ortho-K or myopia management. You can get contacted with, experts from all over the world. And sometimes I see really interesting things come through on there that I'd like to talk about with you. And one of them had to do with a doc who had put a kid in an Ortho-K treatment program. The kid absolutely hated it from start to finish. And eventually, that kid moves on. I think they moved to a different part of the state, and went to go see a different doctor. And that doctor did not continue Ortho-K, but instead put the kid, I think, in my site, or maybe the
Hmm.
original doctor put the kid in my site. I'm not exactly sure. The point I'm trying to get to is that that patient eventually found its way back to the original doctor. The parent was looking to then re-enter the patient into myopia management through my site. And the doctor was like, I don't know what to do here, because presumably they came to me because maybe my prices are better around my site. And essentially, I personally got the feeling like the parent was shopping around for the best deal on my site. And this
Hmm.
is kind of my long-winded way of being like, is this something we should be leery of in the future? Because when I was the executive director of the American Academy of Orthokeratology and Myopia Control, I would often pitch the idea of doing myopia management to other, the ECPs and docs, because I was like, look, your patients can't shop around on you if you're doing Ortho-K. You're making custom designed lenses specifically for their eyes. You're addressing and treating the myopia, or addressing the issue cut in a customized way to each patient. But now with things like MySight and then Ability One Day, whenever that comes out, are we going to be entering into this problem all over again?
Yes, and more. It's more serious now than it's ever been because
Okay.
you go, the optometry and eye care in general has battled against the commodity. I mean, I've yet to see an orthodontist the price of the braces out. The
Mm-hmm.
wire. They never do
Mm-hmm.
that. Yet we as optometrists and eye care practitioners oftentimes will put our materials out there and minus our services and
Mm-hmm.
say, well, then you can buy these materials for this and this price. It just so happens as you get into the my site world and then spectacles is coming eventually,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be even more of a stress on the system because there's going to be more temptation to sell it as a commodity instead of as a service, as a myopia service. And I think that's really going to be the separation for us eye doctors because the ones that have grown up in the like we've led from the beginning into the fact that you have a fee for services and it includes your materials, everything else. I mean, you can't think about doing Ortho-K without doing everything included. You can't think, well, here's your prescription for your braces for the eyes, and you go have
Mm-hmm.
someone fill that. You don't do that. It's all customized for the patient. So the challenge will be going forward will be to have the doctors understand what that means and put that into play in the form of the MySight lens or the One Day or whatever it is it's more than this one thing commodity that you're selling. It's actually a service that you're selling to you're not even, well, you can use the word selling, I guess that's appropriate, but that you're prescribing for the patient to take care of their problem, basically.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, we're not straightening teeth, we're straightening the eyes with Ortho-K, but then again, it's myopia too with MySight and then spectacles. They'll be controlling myopia better, managing it better. And you can't separate these two things. I mean, I've talked to my colleagues in Canada and other places where they now have spectacles available. They have everything basically.
Yeah.
And there is this temptation that they have. I've talked to some of them that some of their competitors will actually give them a prescription for spectacle, lenses for myopia management, devoid of any follow-up or any services to have happen. When will they ever see the patient again? Basically, maybe a 1-year follow-up. That's not what we're thinking about when we talk about myopia. And managing
Mhm.
myopia, we're not thinking about. You're thinking about basically more doctor input into this thing and actually monitoring patients and seeing them back more often for follow-ups. And that is really, where we really need to focus on this, because this is a real, as I see it, it's really going to be a breakdown in the system for us.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I describe the breakdown because
Yeah.
I have similar fears. I got to be honest with you. Like when I was in industry very briefly, and I was selling Ortho K, I was selling an Ortho K lens. So I would visit practices, and one of my leads to those practices would be like on their website, do they list that they're doing a myopia management program, and does it seem like they know what they're talking about? And oftentimes the latter was not true. You could pretty much tell from their website, being an experienced person in this industry for 20 years. I could tell that they really didn't know what they were talking about. They were just kind of saying, yeah, we do myopia management because these are the buzzwords and that can help attract patients. But I would go to these practices nonetheless to see if like maybe the website was old, or maybe they did know, or maybe they had tried, or maybe there was opportunity. Most of those practices were practices that um, did my site, or at least offered it, but
Hmm.
were they doing a lot of it? And the answer was usually no. And so they like their idea of doing myopia management was like, well, I offer my site. And like, look, I have no problems with my site. I'm a fan of whatever is treating the patient. I love the idea of putting more options in the hands of myopia management doctors to help address this problem. But it seemed like it was indicative of a larger issue, which I think is what you were getting at with the breakdown. So
Right.
if you go more into depth about that.
Yeah. It's doctors traditionally, especially optometrists, are intimidated by charging for fees for their services. They don't value the service. I don't know where this came from or why it persists, but they don't value services as much as like our ophthalmology colleagues do, as an example.
Mhm.
And I think this is the real problem in our field, because it tends for us then to to give product away. They give services away without actually proper pricing for that, and also valuation of our services that we give them. And I think it's a bit of an inferiority complex, I think, that we have. I think it goes back to the fact that they're MDs and we're ODs, and it shouldn't be, because both groups are very qualified to do the work that they're supposed to be doing. But because we're not an MD, then we're not quite worth the same as one who is. And I think this falls into place when you see these practices that go about and actually try to then give services away without charging for what they're doing. Basically, I mean, that's what you're there for. You wouldn't, these auto mechanics, plumbers, whatever it is, they know how to do this. I mean, it's about time that we as eye doctors realize that we have to really charge for our services. And so it becomes, for a doctor who's a bit insecure in themselves, maybe hasn't done myopia for a while enough, they're reluctant to do that. They may, as I heard from some of my Canadian colleagues, they may just give a pair of spectacles for myopia. That's it. Just sell them the spectacles, or even give them a prescription for spectacles, and then there's no myopia program to follow up with, which is, again, back where we started from. I mean, we talked about the fact that you don't want to contribute to the myopia epidemic. Well, in part you are, because there's no guarantee that patient's going to do as well with their spectacles, and plus you have to manage it. That's what we're supposed to be doing. I mean, thank God that we are here to manage things like that, because you think about it. I mean, it's not an all online services. At this point, we still have doctors that sit in offices and talk to patients, and thank God for that. I think that's very important to keep that connection. And in fact, I think that's about the biggest thing I see today that happens, that the separation is the fact that doctors, whatever the reason is, they don't have the time, or they just don't apply it properly. The patients are missing that. They're missing that doctor contact time and the input that they can give. So this is just one aspect of it. It's caring for a youngster who's hopefully won't be progressing in myopia, but you give a glasses prescription for myopia management, there's no guarantee the patient's going to wear the lenses. There's no guarantee that they're going to do it for 12 hours a day. There's no guarantee it's going to slow down the function, myopia progression. I mean, we hope it will, but we need to follow up with that patient. We need to do axial lengths. We need to do prescription monitoring of them to make sure they're doing it. And if we have a problem with that, then we need to manage that patient and then, enter in things like low dose atropine and other considerations that may help with that. And we've tons of stuff we talk about this. I've thought about this problem for a while, Matt, since we discussed this. And I think basically we're going to work on this with our ECPs, with our docs, about giving them the confidence to do this. I think there's definite ways that you go about practicing that you can build your more of your confidence so that you can go and talk to the patient and feel more secure about what you're doing. And I think that's one of the things that we're going to strive to teach our docs about, things that I did and things we incorporated along the way that can actually help them deal with this issue and problem that they seem to have.
Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of like the whole point of, the myopia mindset, right? Like
Right.
over 20 years of being in this industry, I've gotten really used to seeing the kind of ECP that is best suited for ortho-K and myopia management. And over the years, I've had this kind of like weird fear, this like pain in my chest, so to speak, this uncomfortable feeling that like, may even keep me up at night thinking like there's only a limited number of optometrists out there or eye care providers out there who will actually do myopia management at the level that is needed to be done, because it seems to me, or at least it did back then. I mean, I'm hoping to disprove this fear. Is that it takes a unique, specially designed or wired individual to do this. And one of the things about having multiple myopia solutions is that you could have, again, I'm a fan of whatever you're using to treat the patient. But it begs the question that as more options become available and those options become more accessible, the docs who do ortho-K, for instance, are going to be head and shoulders above the rest, because once myopia management becomes mainstream enough, and I hope it does, like everybody will be doing having a myopia management answer in place. And how are you going to, be a cut above the rest? You're going to have to do more and do it better than everybody else. It's going to set that new standard if we're lucky enough to have it set a new standard in eye care. And
well, yeah, yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you have this gap that from lack of experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
I call it the experience gap in myopia. And the only way to bridge that gap is to actually do it, do
Mm-hmm.
enough of it. And yet there's too many dabblers out there, that dabble in it and will prescribe.
All right, well, that's it for this regular version of the episode, but the discussion doesn't stop here. It actually continues in an extended version of this episode, which is available to our Substack supporters. You can, if you're interested in getting the rest of the episode, consider becoming a paid supporter of the Myopia Mindset. In addition to an extended version of this episode and every other episode that we do, you'll also get access to exclusive monthly bonus episodes of the Myopia Mindset. And I know you're interested. You've made it this far. And for the cost is $12 a month, which is basically the cost of a cup of coffee each and every week. And that's how I like to put it. Listen, if you would buy me a cup of coffee each and every week to nerd out about myopia, to bring on amazing guests, to spread the word about how awesome myopia management is and how more ECPs should be engaged in this specialty, then please consider becoming a paid supporter of the Myopia Mindset. You can do so on our Substack. myopiamindset.substack.com is how you do that. Thank you so much for your consideration. I'll see you at the next one.